How's it going, everyone? Sick Nostalgia Joker's back once again, and unfortunately, because I'm sick, I can't really provide the videos that I want to, so I've had to postpone a few videos. That's why it's taking a little while longer to upload stuff. So today, I'm just here to provide a general viability ranking of all the gadgets relative to the current game's power. Now, this is not going to just be only the new gadgets, but it's also going to contain some of the buffed gadgets as well. And these buff gadgets, unfortunately, a lot of them didn't really receive the buffs they needed. So starting in the tier list, let me just talk about these tiers real quick. S tier, literally, if you could compete with Ring Engine, Hyper Ring Engine, Quick Charge 2, Slipstream Bounty, Ring Game Boost, this is kind of where you're at, is this S tier to A tier range. If you're B tier, you're kind of a bit underpowered. You can still find some success in lobbies where there's not a lot of Ring Engine based builds, but the moment you start versing people with the meta builds or using Ring Engine 130 based builds, you are going to find a lot of struggle. C tier are gadgets that are pretty underpowered. They're a little bit weaker than the B tier gadgets, but they do fall heavily behind when it comes to the A and S tier gadgets. D tier gadgets just barely squeak out enough value to be considerable as a gadget that you should use. And F tier are gadgets that I recommend you should not play. Doesn't matter if you're a casual player or a competitive player that's just trying to have fun. These are gadgets you should probably just avoid playing unless you want to meme, and there's a lot of good reasons behind it. So I would like to start off by just filling the F tier with all the worst gadgets in this list, and we're going to run this through right away. So all the gadgets that deserve to be in this position are all the tuner gadgets that were just buffed, all the quick starter and slow starter gadgets that were just buffed, the kits that were buffed, and on top of that, after all of these are in, finally the last one is Invincible Finish. I believe that is everything. So why specifically all of these gadgets in F tier? Why not something else? So let me just run through everything besides Invincible Finish. I'll save this one for last. All the gadgets that are in F tier besides Invincible Finish provide unnecessary stats that are inflating the cost from 2 slots or 1 slot to 3 slots of value, and it's completely unnecessary. There's legitimately no reason to run any of the machine kits at all, because honestly, they provide less value than just a single tuner at this point. I mean, heck, Speed Machine Kit is literally 3 1-slots slapped together into a 3-slot combo when you can just run Excel Character Kit and a Speed Tuner if you really wanted to. And there's a lot of other problems with some of these, such as you have Handling Machine Kit, which is just all charged for 3 slots, Dash Panel Combo Kit, which is just Dash Panel Combo Bounty for 3 slots. You have Boost Machine Kit, that is literally just a worse Perfect Charge Bounty. You have Acceleration Machine Kit, which is significantly worse Quick Recovery. You have Power Machine Kit, which is worse Collision Boost because you're now spending 3 slots, and so on and so forth. Now, you might be saying, well, what about the Quick Starters and the Super Quick Starter and the Slow Starter and Super Slow Starter? They provide so much value. Not really. Plus 60 to all your stats for 1 lap is hyper conditional. It is not worth it. When you have a gadget such as Hyper Ring Engine, which provides you plus 100 all your stats when you get to a certain amount of rings, and you get to max all the stats and keep it consistent throughout the whole course of the race, that provides a lot more consistent value, on top of the fact that you get plus 4 flat speed for just using Hyper Ring Engine. And even if you use Ring Engine and only got plus 12 to all your stats, you're still getting plus 3 flat speed. And that flat speed matters way more than getting the stat speed. Yeah, just because you get plus 60 to your speed, that means Ring Engine is theoretically giving you plus 60 because 3 flat speed bonus is technically 60 extra speed stat on top of the plus 12 to everything. And it's universally online as long as you have 1 ring. Whereas the gadgets such as the slow starters and the quick starters require you to spend more gadget slots outside of just quick start itself for significantly less value than just Ring Engine with 130. Now, on top of that, Ace Pilot and Sea Dog just don't get enough value off of what they do, and they just don't have the best gadgets paired with them, unfortunately. It's just not worth them, and there's not enough air and water to really utilize these gadgets, which really sucks. But for the most part, all these gadgets either get completely outshined, or they cost too much, or in general, there's a gadget that is just a cheaper version of these. So, for the most part, they are the worst. Invincible Finish is the first of the new gadgets that I would like to talk about, and this is the worst one in the game by far. This gadget is terrible. You only get a shield's length of invincibility on the final 300-meter stretch, which is nothing at all. That is like the start of the first set of dash panels on most tracks on the final stretch. So unless you have some way to consistently get there, which because you're committing half your gadget plate to just this gadget alone, you're not going to have enough speed gen, ring gen, or drift gen in your kit to allow you to consistently get to the 300-meter line before you get hit too many times and then you're just crap out of luck and you're heavily reliant on item RNG or players getting completely screwed by RNG. So unfortunately, this is just not it. I don't recommend it, and I don't think you should ever play it. Now, as for gadgets that may have value, Damage Evolution, and we'll cover the evolutions first. Damage Evolution is the least valuable of the evolution gadgets. You get plus 7 for getting hit, but in general, you do not want to get hit. If it wasn't for the fact that on top of the fact that you get plus 7 stats for getting hit, and you lose 50 rings for getting hit still, this could potentially be a lot better, but unfortunately for the negative that you have to not only lose 50 rings, which is a lot of speed, and I've said this a lot, but if you're at 100 rings and you get hit once, you go down by roughly 10 flat speed, which is horrible horrible. You do not want to lose 10 flat speed from getting hit once, and you want to have gadgets that help you get back up to max rings, and this unfortunately doesn't do that and doesn't provide enough value to be in your gadget plates. Ring evolution and collision evolution. These two are kind of interchangeable when it comes to casual and intermediate play. These two have some value. If you're better at generating rings, you just slot in ring evolution, but in general, if you want more consistency and you want to slam a gadget more often, probably run collision evolution. This gadget allows you to tap people constantly, and even if people snake into you, you get that tap. And I believe this tap is based on both sides of desync, so if an opponent rams into you, I believe you still get a stat point for it, but both of these provide one stat for beating their condition, so keep that in mind. But for ring evolution, the reason it's not higher is because you need 600 rings to max this out, and with collision evolution, you need 60 taps. So whichever one you find more consistent, I would just recommend go for either one of these, but otherwise, these gadgets are just unfortunately not the best, which really sucks. Finally, item hit evolution. I think this one's the best one, clearly by a mile. This gadget has the most potential to get used in builds such as Ring Edge 130 Limit, Perfect Charge Bounty, and Quick Charge 2. You can consistently place this in, and the way it works is whenever you hit someone, as long as that little pop-up shows up on your screen, that gives you +7 to all your stats. Now, there's a reason why Monster Truck Starter, Tornado, and Short Fuse, and things of that nature are just a lot better than just running Dark Chow Starter. Now, Monster Truck Starter, Short Fuse bombs, or just bombs in general, and Tornado, they all can hit multiple people non-stop, and as long as you see that pop-up and you hear the ding sound effect, that means you got +7 to your stats. So with like Short Fuse, if it rolls and hits like 2 people as it rolls, you'll get +14, and then if it hits like 3 people with the explosion, you'll get another +21. You just have to have that pop-up show up, and it has to go ding, 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 ding. But otherwise, I think this one's just the most consistent and the most splashable of the evolutions, but I wouldn't say these evolutions are the best gadgets by any means. I think these are really fun gadgets, but I do think the best one by far is item hit evolution. Spin Drift, unfortunately, for how much of a fun gadget it really is, it's only D tier. Doesn't provide enough value at all outside of just trolling people and throwing people off lines. Even though I am the spin drift connoisseur, I will admit at least it's no longer F tier, because the amount of launch that you get on some people now is absolutely insane. It's really funny, and it's stronger on E-gear base builds as well. So lower power builds can get more value off of spin drift, which is really nice. But in general, unless you have min-maxed optimal lines and you can permanently slipstream off people and send them off their lines, this gadget really just isn't it. Unfortunately, it really sucks. Now moving on to Perfect Landing. Perfect Landing, I think, perfectly lands itself in C tier. This gadget just is really situational and doesn't have a lot of spots, but it's less situational than Ultimate Air Trick, which I'll get to that in a second. Perfect Landing, anytime you hit the ground, if you click Accelerate after you hit the ground, like you have to time it pretty precisely, the game is not that lenient with it, you will get a speed boost. I believe the speed boost is similar to that of Perfect Charge Boost, but for the most part, there is a lot of spots where you can actually get this off, especially a lot of water sections. You can constantly chain these after your level 2 or 3 jumps, so there's a lot of value to be had with this, but for the most part, even with that, it is kind of just a one slot filler that gives you more speed when you land, so it is hyper situational on some tracks, but if you get the tracks for it, it's definitely a really fun gadget. Ultimate Air Trick. Ultimate Air Trick is unfortunately a D tier gadget. This gadget just, it's so It's only really good on Metal Harbor for the most part because of the long jumps that it has and the many spots that you can get a lot of value off of it. It's just way too situational to find a ton of consistent value, which really sucks because you need to hit 4 tricks to finally get the invincibility. And then even after you hit 4 tricks and get the invincibility, it lasts all the way till the end of the jump and then for another 2 seconds, so it lasts longer than Ultimate Charge. But Ultimate Charge can be used pretty much anywhere, so there is definitely a difference of value here. And that's why I think this gadget is D tier. It's too situational to make work, even if you wanted it to. Like, there's just not enough consistently good jump spots and consistently viable jump spots to allow for this. And the possible jump spots that allow you to get 4 air tricks off without committing a majority of your build to air trick based stuff are very few and far between, especially ones that are optimal to take. So, unfortunately, due to how situational it is, it lands itself in D tier. Crash Pads. Crash Pads, I actually think, lands itself in C tier. I think Crash Pads is definitely a lot better now that it's no longer a 2-slot gadget, it's only a 1-slot. But even with the fact that it is a 1-slot now, it doesn't really provide the value that something like 130 does with the Ring Engine gadgets. So, Crash Pads is really nice, though, because when you get hit by anything that isn't a crush attack or a stage hazard, you lose 25 rings instead of 50, which is actually a massive difference. But in terms of the speed loss, instead of losing like 10, you're only losing 8 to 9 roughly instead of 10 to 11. So it does a little bit better, but the best part about it really is the fact that now instead of taking 2 slots up, it only takes 1, and now you can fit in more speed, ring, and or drift generation, which is very, very important. Being able to fit more speed, ring, or drift generation in general is massive, so it does provide itself with a lot of value. Before the patch, I would say it is bottom of D tier, top of F tier in terms of potential value, especially for casual and intermediate play. In terms of competitive play, it was literally like super F tier. But now I think in terms of casual modes and trying to play for more like casual to intermediate level, I think it's actually not that bad. I think in terms of this tier list being competitive, all these gadgets would literally be moved down by a tier or two because Hyper Ring Engine, 130 Perfect Charge Bounty, and Quick Charge 2 just stand above everything so heavily that it's almost impossible to compete with it unless you have a heavy Slipstream based build. And even then, that provides a lot of room for inconsistency. Item Keeper. Item Keeper after the buffs, I would say is actually a C tier gadget. This gadget was mainly a D or F tier. Now with the fact that Dark Chow doesn't roll your inventory when you have this equipped and it only rolls the empty slots, it actually provides it a lot more value. But even then, it's 2 slots of value when something like Substitute Item is 2 slots of value, and I would rank it B tier. Now, the reason I rank Substitute Item higher than Item Keeper is because of how they function when getting hit. So, unlike Substitute Item versus Item Keeper, it's mainly the idea of if you get hit, what do you lose? Item Keeper, when you get hit, just keeps your items from things that would roll them out or force them out, such as like Slime Weights, Slicer, and Dark Chow. But with Substitute Item, if you're going to get hit by Green Glove, Red Glove, even if they're untargeted, or I believe Slicer if I'm correct, you don't lose any speed, you don't lose any rings, you only lose the item in your frontmost slot. So, because of this, you can keep taking an optimal line, eat the hit, and not waste an item, besides the one that you have to use for blocking the attack from Substitute Item, and it allows you to actually have just so much more consistency because of it. Now, granted, it is 2 slots, just like Item Keeper, so it does take up a third of your gadget plate just to slam it on, and you have to sacrifice out a really important 2-slot gadget. So, if you're planning on using this, you probably want to use this with Spin Dash Kit builds, or you want to use this with Acceleration Character Kit builds, things of that nature. Speaking of Spin Dash Kit, I think Spin Dash Kit is B tier. I think this kit, it has been showing a little bit more success. I think players have been optimizing it a little bit more, but it still suffers from some pretty severe faults. Now, I'm not saying this gadget is by far even remotely meta or even close to meta, but the fact that it can keep up pretty consistently and it has some potential builds such as with Substitute Item and Excel Character Kit, it actually has some potential here. Now, that potential is heavily need capped because of the fact that you lose 30 speed when you drift, and drifting usually takes 3 seconds without any drift charge gadgets. So if you're not committing to drift charge based gadgets or having a optimized build for it, you're wasting a lot of time with it. And if you get hit at all, you lose a lot of time. On top of the fact, from what I believe has been discovered, some flight and boat gates, or all of them, actually delete your drift boost. So because of that, you have to now drift forcefully again. So there's a lot of instances where you're going to have to re-drift up. And if I am wrong on that, I will put a text box to correct myself so that way you guys understand. But to my knowledge, there's a lot of instances where you have to constantly re-drift, which is very inoptimal. It's not very good. So that is something that's very, very bad for Spin Dash Kit. Now, I do think Spin Dash Kit in the right hands could be at least maybe A tier level, but we have to really wait and see. I think it's like a high C, low B tier gadget, and especially with how the gadgets are right now with like Hyper Ring Engine 130 and Ring Engine 130 base builds, Spin Dash Kit does fall short, unfortunately. Finally, Perfect Charge Boost. I think Perfect Charge Boost is kind of cements itself in the same spot as Spin Dash Kit, kind of C tier to B tier range. It is a lot better after the buff, and as people have mastered the tech with it, it has gotten a lot stronger. But that is because players have learned a obscure tech with it that is pretty interesting for the most part. And in general, it is not the best gadget by any means. There are a lot of other 2-slot gadgets that you'd rather run over it, such as Perfect Charge Bounty, which is its cousin. And that gadget is literally omnipresent on so many builds currently. And even if you don't run that, Ring Game Boost is still right there. And it's a very, very consistent option that not only forces you to build ring generation to make it work, but on top of that, you run it with power machines and you just go absolutely nuts when it comes to speed. I think Perfect Charge Boost in the right hands can still work. The problem with a lot of these gadgets that are sitting in B to C tier range are legitimately gadgets that even in World Match you can make all these work and you can make anything work, but the problem is that World Match is not a good testing grounds to just say, hey, damage evolution is the best evolution. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been winning with it nonstop. That doesn't really help prove anything with it. If you want to prove a gadget is strong, unironically, you have to go take it into high level Mugi, and when it comes to high level Mugi, you have to consistently be able to place in a good way. If you're not consistent at all and you're highly inconsistent with these gadgets, it just shows that they are inconsistent in general, which really sucks about it, and it doesn't help provide any value to showcase that these gadgets do have any value at all. It actually shows that they have less value than really wish to show, which really sucks. But for the most part, that's my tier list opinion of the post-patch overview of all the gadgets and all the buff gadgets. Unfortunately, a lot of these gadgets, even with their buffs, didn't really move at all. And now we did see some gadgets like Crash Pads, in my opinion, Item Keeper, in my opinion, and Perfect Charge Boost just move up, and Spin Drift moved up. Now, Spin Drift, I have bias, but again, we did see a few gadgets move up, but for the most part, a lot of these old gadgets that have been buffed just didn't get enough value added to them, and they don't provide enough value that some other gadgets already provide. Not only the same value, but better value. It's just not worth it to run anything in F tier, unfortunately, unless you want to have fun. But for the most part, anything in B to D tier range, you can actually find some reasonable success to some degree with them, but they're going to be either hyper situational, like ultimate air trick, reliant on you being extremely good at the game to find value, or in general, it's on the cusp of being literally F tier. There's a lot of these gadgets that do have some fun potential, like the C tier and B tier gadgets, but they do require you to play a lot better than your opponents to get consistent good positions. So keep that in mind. If this was specifically targeted toward competitive play, I'm not even kidding when I say this tier list would look something like this. Like, dead serious. In terms of competitive play, this is how the tier list would actually look like if we were being legitimate here. Now, you might be wondering, Stella, why is this? Well, let's take the Ring Engine and let's take the Ring Game Boost gadgets. The Ring Engines and Perfect Charge Bounty, these gadgets sit up on top of our throne. These gadgets are so incredibly strong and consistent that it's almost impossible to do anything with them. Ring Game Boost is like in this A to B tier range, which is hard to say where it should be fully placed, but it provides value. It's just not enough value to really justify them being ran over something like these. And in general, Ring Game Boost is really solid. When it comes to gadgets that are like A tier right now, you're looking at stuff such as Quick Charge 2, 130, and Slipstream Bounty, which these are all gadgets that would be A tier level. So you're looking at gadgets that have a lot of guaranteed consistency with these gadgets up here in S tier, on top of the fact that Slipstream Bounty is just a general good gadget overall. So there's nothing wrong with Slipstream Bounty. The big thing is that Slipstream Bounty is just such a good splashable gadget on builds with like Ring Game Boost and things of that nature. You know, I'll throw it up here at A tier just for consistency's sake. But for the most part, like literally the gadgets in A tier either work super well with everything else in S or A tier, or they're just so generally consistent that they're just insanely good to have on every build basically, as long as you're running them. Whereas everything down here in F and D tier are literally just so incredibly inconsistent, or they cost way too much, or they don't provide enough value quick enough, unlike how Hyper Re-Engine, Ring Engine, and Ring Game Boost really do. Or they don't provide enough rings such as Perfect Charge Bounty does, or Slipstream Bounty over the course of a few seconds. Things of that nature. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. This is the quick competitive tier list of what actually is potentially good, even though, let's be real, everything when it comes to what's good is actually looking like this rather than what I had previously. This is what I would say in relative to the competitive tier listing stuff is where you're going to rank everything else. Everything basically is like D tier to F tier. It's extremely bad, whereas like Ring Game Boost, it's still solid, but Ring Engine and Hyper Ring Engine just have such amazing consistency, provide stats, and have flat speed that Ring Game Boost cannot consistently achieve, which is very unfortunate for it, so it does make it fall short. That's all I got for you guys. Tell me what you liked about the tier list, and tell me what you didn't like about the tier list. I would like to really know what you guys think when it comes to a casual, intermediate perspective, and even a high to top level perspective. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and hopefully I won't be sick.